The Mercedes Benz G-Wagon truly is in a class of its own. It's a car that appeals to an unbelievably wide audience, ranging from those interested in off-roading, military, style and fashion, and even taxes. Now, many determined to make a statement with the G-Wagon often opt for the AMG version, the G63. But today I've got a G550 to find out if the base non-AMG is something to consider or just skip over. So let's start off by giving a big thank you to Porsche of Downtown LA for access to this G550. If you happen to be interested in this Mercedes or any other Porsche product, be sure to give them a call using the information in the description below. Now let's talk engine details and what separates this G550 from a G63. So the engine, it's actually the same unit as the G63. It's a 4-liter twin-turbo V8, but it produces 416 horsepower and 450 pounds-feet of torque. It's connected to a 9-speed automatic transmission, and it puts power down to all 4 wheels. It's got 3 locking differentials, adaptive dampers to adjust the ride, and active roll bars to keep the car as balanced as possible. 0 to 60 occurs in just 5.6 seconds, but if hauling was something you're interested in, the G550 can tow up to 7,000 pounds. Finally, the G550 gross vehicle weight rating comes in at almost 7,000 pounds for those interested in this car for tax purposes. But let's put taxes to the side for a second and talk about the interior of the G-Wagon. So the front cabin is excellent. Sitting at 5'11", I have plenty of headroom. I have plenty of legroom. I would imagine somebody several inches taller than I am will be able to get comfortable inside of the G-Wagon. Speaking of comfortable, let's talk about this seat. So this is wonderfully cushioned and appropriate for daily drivability. Very comfortable to sit in. They're heated, cooled, and if you take an option, they can be massaging as well. In terms of quality, it's top-notch in the G-Wagon. Good quality leather, metal finish knobs and switches all result in a premium feel. Switching to technology, the G-Wagon is equipped with 2 12.3-inch screens, one for the gauge cluster and another for infotainment. Speaking of infotainment, it's running the previous version of Mercedes' system called Command, and it feels a little dated. The system is not a touchscreen, but rather controlled via a knob, and for some that might be an issue, but it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is definitely a plus. Finally, you can't talk G-Wagon without mentioning the doors and locks, because unlocking the car and opening its doors provide a unique feel on their own. The G-Wagon reverberates a satisfying click-clack metallic and almost addicting feedback when using the doors and locks. Closing them shut requires some effort as well, but all worth it as a part of the entire G-Wagon experience. So inside the G550, let's take this thing out for a spin and add on to the experience with the way it drives. So you turn it on and the V8 rumbles up. Sounds very nice, and it kind of almost like shakes the body a little bit, but not too drastic. It's still very refined. Let's go for a roll here. So one of the interesting things that you'll never know about the G-Wagon until you actually drive it is the position of the throttle pedal, where normally in standard regular cars it would be at, let's say, like a 75 or 80 degree angle. This one's mounted a little lower, almost 60, 55 degree angle. So again, something that you'll notice the second you get into this thing and you press on the accelerator pedal. Now let's go ahead and put this thing in sport. The exhaust baffles open up. The adaptive suspension does stiffen up a little bit. 416 horsepower, 450 pounds-feet of torque. Let's put it in manual shift mode. Get on our straight here. First gear mash at 8 miles an hour, a little bit of lag. Oh man, it's such an interesting dynamic to be up this high and to be going fast and accelerate at a rapid speed, and the exhaust burbles. Oh yeah, it sounds good. The exhaust sound, no question, even in the G550. Let's go again, second gear. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting, that is for sure. There's a police officer here, highway patrolman. Let's go around. Let's be nice for a second. Let's keep it easy. Hopefully he doesn't come after us. We're gonna get in trouble, caught on film. No, but looks like he's a cool cop minding his own business. All right, here we go. We're gonna test that one more time. And I'll give you my impressions. Here we go. First gear. It really gets up and goes for just a regular G550. It does really, really move. And considering the 450 horsepower, the 450 pounds-feet of torque, for daily driving situation, I drove this around. I'm in the city here in downtown LA. And this thing rides perfectly. It's got the ample amount of power. The 450 pounds-feet of torque get you rolling from stoplight to stoplight, and also merging onto the freeway. No issues with passing. Now, obviously, this is the G550. If you want the better acceleration, the more power, a little bit better exhaust sound, a little bit more audible in the G63, you're probably going to want to go in that direction. But this, for a daily driver situation, it's more than enough power, more than enough torque. You're not really going to be wanting anything in addition to what this already has. Now, switching over into the suspension. So this is riding on adaptive dampers and active anti-roll bars. Now, what this does is it tries to balance the car as much as possible, because truth be told, this is somewhat constrained because the overall architecture, it's a military car, you're kind of sitting up high, so for performance-oriented driving, you're somewhat sacrificed. So these anti-roll bars and the adaptive dampers are tuned in a very unique way for the G-Wagon or the G-Class to give you that balance, the daily drivability. But my impressions of it, there are modes, right? So there's comfort, sport, and comfort and sport, basically, if I remember correctly. Let me double check. Yeah, it's comfort, sport, and individual, which allows you to tune the modes the way you like. But in comfort mode for daily driving, paired with the extremely cushiony and comfortable seat, it is absolutely wonderful. I would not have any issues driving this on a daily basis, even considering, oh, it's a G-Wagon, it's a military off-roader car. This is more than like, it's above and beyond what you would get in even a regular sedan. But I do have to, I guess, caveat that with, it is still a G-Wagon. It is still an SUV. Is it the most comfortable SUV that I've driven? No, it is not. I've driven a couple, like the Range Rover is more comfortable than this. I would venture to say even the Porsche Cayenne is more comfortable than this. And one of the reasons why, and this is something that is more of a question and a thought from an analysis standpoint, is the G-Wagon has the adaptive suspension, right? So it's a fixed spring. Now, I'm wondering if Mercedes would ever consider putting an air suspension in the G-Wagon, and I don't know how that compromises the off-roading capabilities of the G-Wagon, but I can tell you, after driving several similar cars with air suspension and without, the air suspension provides a much wider bandwidth or wider capability for the car to be driven on a daily basis more comfortably than a fixed adaptive shock, and more sporty when flipping modes and putting them into sport mode, just in general. So it's just a thought. Curious if Mercedes would ever consider putting an air shock in the G-Wagon. Maybe they're reserving that for the G63 that's yet to be released, the new one that is. So let's see if that plays through. But if you have any insight on that, I would be interested to hear what you have to say in the comments. But let's round out the driving dynamics by saying that from the second you touch the key fob in this car, you unlock the doors, the bank vault style locking mechanism, the doors, you hear that click-clack metallic noise. You open the door, you get in, and you push start, the V8 rumbles up, and the doors lock as you're driving away. It's just a through and through
experience in this G-Class. So the pedal positioning, the way you sit, the overall kind of glass house, fishbowl style feeling where the pillars are so thin, the A pillars, the B pillars, it's just like this very unique experience that is pretty much only delivered in a Mercedes G-Wagon. So from this standpoint, when you think about it, when you correlate the price to this dynamic, it's where else are you going to get this? Unless in a modern car, at least in a modern car, you're not going to get this. Guy sleeping. You're not going to get this experience in any other modern car. So the G-Wagon kind of is really just competing against itself. And I don't know if anybody is willing to put up a fight against it, considering the history and this dynamic that it delivers. So that's it from a driving dynamic standpoint. Now let's wrap it up with some final thoughts. So that's the Mercedes G550. Now the G63 may be a little cooler, a little faster, and maybe a little bit more desirable, but nothing taken away from the G550, and let me tell you why. Because they both share the same V8. The G550 rides a little bit better than the G63. It still has the overall shape and cool looks of a G-Wagon, and one could argue that it's better to drive on a daily basis. Now, as unrational as it seems to buy a G550 or a G63, it all kind of starts making sense once you get behind the wheel, because they both offer an unbelievable experience that's only available in a G-Wagon. So that's all I've got. If you've got any questions, please make sure you leave me a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram @DriveSteady. If you happen to be interested in a G63 video, here's one I've made in the past. Another thank you to Porsche of Downtown LA. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.